Ever since I was a little girl, I dreamed of becoming a doctor. I used to line up my dolls like patients and pretend I was checking their heartbeat. While other kids were watching cartoons, I'd be flipping through my mom's old magazines pretending they were medical books. My parents never really paid much attention to my dreams. They said things like, "Doctors are for rich families," or, "It's too hard, why not become a nurse?" But I didn't let their words break me. In fact, they made me even more determined. When I turned 18 and left for college, I had nothing but a second-hand suitcase, a few clothes, and my scholarship papers. I took on 2 part-time jobs, one at a small diner and another at a clinic that paid just enough to cover my rent. I studied late into the night, often sitting in libraries until the janitor turned off the lights. I didn't party. I didn't travel. I didn't buy new clothes. Every single dollar I had went to books, rent, and tuition. My social life was limited to study groups and quick phone calls to classmates. Sometimes I cried into my pillow because I was so tired. But still I didn't stop. I remember this one night I was so exhausted from a double shift at the diner and a lab class earlier in the day that I fell asleep on my notes. I woke up with pen marks on my cheek and my neck hurting from the table edge. But instead of feeling defeated, I just smiled. I was doing what I loved. And deep down I believed that one day all of it would be worth it. Then came the day I received my final exam results. I opened the email with trembling hands. For a second I thought my eyes were lying. But there it was, clear as day, my name next to the words, "Congratulations, Doctor of Medicine." I stared at it in disbelief, then burst into tears. I sat on the floor of my small apartment and cried like a child. Not out of sadness, but because I had done it. I made it. After everything I'd been through, I wanted just one thing: to share that moment with my family. I wanted to see my parents' faces when they saw me in my graduation gown. I wanted my sister to clap and cheer for me like I used to do for her. I wanted to feel like I finally made them proud. Growing up, it was always clear who the favorite child was. My younger sister, Amber, was treated like a princess. She got the newest clothes, the biggest birthday parties, and all the attention. I was the quiet one in the background, the one who learned to cook for herself, who did her own laundry at 13, and who got used to hearing, "Not now," whenever I asked for anything. My parents never came to my school plays, never asked about my grades, and when I said I wanted to become a doctor, they just rolled their eyes. Amber, on the other hand, could say she wanted to become a professional cupcake taster, and they'd cheer like she just won an Olympic medal. When she got into community college, they posted about it all over Facebook. When I got into medical school on a full scholarship, my mom's only comment was, "Wow, that's gonna be expensive. Don't expect help from us." So no, I never got emotional or financial support from them. But despite all that, I still loved them. And deep down, I kept hoping that one day they'd see me. Really see me. So when my graduation date was finally set, I made the decision to invite them. Not just invite, I went all out. I knew money was tight for them. So I took what I had saved over the years, even dipped into the small emergency fund I'd built, and booked 3 round-trip flights. I reserved a nice hotel near campus, arranged transportation from the airport, and even added sightseeing tours so they could enjoy the weekend. It wasn't cheap. All of it together cost me around $14,000. But I didn't care. I told myself it was worth it. I pictured the moment I'd walk across that stage, hear my name called, and look out into the audience to see my family standing and clapping. I wanted them to feel like they were a part of my journey. Even after everything, I just wanted to feel loved. I didn't need them to say sorry for the past. I just needed them to show up for once. That's all I asked. And so I sent the invitations, booked everything under their names, and waited with a hopeful heart for the day I had worked so hard for. The morning of my graduation, I woke up feeling a strange mix of nerves and excitement. I had laid out my gown and cap the night before, neatly pressed and ready. My alarm went off at 6, but I had already been awake for an hour, just lying there thinking about everything that led to this moment. I slipped into my gown slowly, like it was something sacred. I looked at myself in the mirror and smiled. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel proud. Today I wasn't just a medical graduate. I was proof that hard work, grit, and sacrifice could win. I arrived at the university hall early. The ceremony wasn't starting for another hour, but I couldn't sit still. I stood near the entrance, scanning every car that pulled up. My eyes searched for my dad's gray jacket, for my mom's soft pink scarf, for my sister's signature sunglasses. Every time I saw a family walk past holding flowers and cameras, I hoped it would be them. But they didn't come. I pulled out my phone. Maybe they were running late. Maybe their flight got delayed. I checked my messages. Nothing. No missed calls, no texts. I called once, then twice. Straight to voicemail. I didn't panic yet. Maybe they were on their way, just didn't have signal. But then, out of instinct, I opened social media. And there was a photo of my parents and my sister standing in front of a blue dome building. My stomach dropped. The location tag read, Santorini, Greece. The next photo showed them sitting at a seaside restaurant, raising their glasses in a toast. My sister was laughing, my mother was smiling at a plate of seafood, and my father was wearing sunglasses, holding a glass of wine like he was celebrating something. I just stood there. Gown on, cap in hand, surrounded by families cheering and hugging their graduates, while I scrolled through photos of my own family on vacation without me. They hadn't told me. They hadn't called. They hadn't even sent a message to say they weren't coming. They just took the tickets I bought with my own money and disappeared. It felt like someone had knocked the air out of my lungs. I had imagined their cheers, their hugs maybe. Even a rare "we're proud of you." But all I got was silence. Silence and pictures of them laughing far away as if I didn't even exist. After the ceremony, I walked back to my apartment in silence. No flowers in my hand, no one by my side. The streets felt empty even though people were everywhere. I kept thinking maybe they would call. Maybe there was some explanation. Maybe, just maybe, I had misunderstood something. I kept clinging to that tiny bit of hope, even though my heart already knew the truth. A few hours later, as I sat on my bed still in my gown, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my mom. My hands trembled as I opened it, thinking it might be an apology or at least an explanation. But the moment I read it, I felt something inside me break. "You're not even a real doctor," it said. "You don't work in a hospital. You just study and read books. What's the big deal?" I stared at the screen, unable to believe what I was reading. Then came another message, this time from my sister. "Relax. We needed a break. Greece was more fun than sitting in a hot gym for hours." That was it. No congratulations. No sorry. No emotion. Just a slap in the face wrapped in casual cruelty. I had spent years sacrificing everything, sleep, money, my health, to get to this point. I gave them everything. I invited them into one of the biggest days of my life. And this was how they chose to respond. I dropped the phone on my bed and covered my face with my hands. The tears came quickly and they didn't stop. I cried for hours, not because of the words themselves but because of what they meant. The words just confirmed something I had tried so hard not to believe. They never truly cared about me. All those years of trying to earn their approval, trying to be the perfect daughter, trying to make them proud, it was all one-sided. I was just a convenience to them. Someone they could ignore and when needed, use. They didn't see me. They never did. And for the first time in my life, I stopped trying to make them see. In that moment, my graduation didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning. The beginning of a life where I would no longer chase love from people who were never willing to give it. The next morning, my eyes were swollen from all the crying, but my mind was clear, clearer than it had ever been. I wasn't going to beg for their attention anymore. I wasn't going to sit silently while they mocked everything I had worked for. If they wanted to treat me like nothing, I was going to show them just how much that nothing had cost me. I sat at my desk, still in my pajamas, and opened my laptop. I carefully scanned my medical degree, the one I had earned through sleepless nights, endless exams, and sacrifices they would never understand. I saved it as a PDF and titled it simply, Dr. Emily Monroe, Official Degree. I stared at it for a moment before opening a new email. In the same email, I attached another document, an invoice. I called it Family Graduation Travel Expenses, and used. The breakdown was crystal clear. 3 round-trip flights, $3,900. 3-night hotel stay, $2,100. Transportation from airport, $600. A graduation dinner reservation, canceled, $400. City tours and sightseeing, $700. Miscellaneous, $300. Emotional damage, $6,000. Total, $14,000. At the bottom I wrote a single sentence. "Since you chose Greece over showing up for me, here's your bill. Pay it if you value your fun more than my future." I didn't scream. I didn't insult them. I didn't even ask for money. I just gave them the facts, the cold, uncomfortable truth in numbers. I hit send. And then I waited. It didn't take long. Within hours, my phone lit up with calls and messages. First my mom, then my dad, then my sister. Over and over. They went from ignoring me for weeks to suddenly needing to talk. Urgently. I let it ring. Again and again. I didn't pick up. I wasn't ready to hear excuses or fake apologies. For once, they were the ones chasing me. And I can't lie, it felt powerful. After all the silence, after all the tears, I had finally spoken the one language they understood. Cost. As the calls kept flooding in, I sat calmly with my phone in my hand. For years, I had always rushed to answer their calls no matter how they treated me. But not this time. This time I let it ring. I watched their names flash across the screen. Mom, Dad, Sophia. But I didn't feel that old panic in my chest. I felt peace. Pure quiet peace. Then without a second thought, I opened my settings and blocked each of their numbers. One by one. No tears this time. Just a long, steady breath after each one. I wasn't doing it out of anger. I was doing it because I had finally accepted the truth. They weren't good for me. Next, I went into my emergency contacts. For the longest time, my parents had been listed there, just in case something ever happened. But now, the thought of relying on them in an emergency made my stomach turn. I deleted their names and replaced them with the only two people who had stood by me through everything. My old college roommate and my mentor from med school. People who actually showed up. People who saw me, valued me, and treated me with respect. Later that afternoon, I called my lawyer. I had made a will when I started medical school. Nothing major, just a basic one that left everything to my family. But I wanted it changed. Completely. I removed my parents and my sister from every part of it. No inheritance, no rights, no say over my health or finances. I gave power of attorney to my mentor, someone I trusted deeply. Someone who had never missed a single milestone in my journey. And in my will, I left everything to a scholarship fund I planned to start one day. For students like me who had no support but kept pushing forward anyway. When I hung up the phone, I felt lighter. Not just in my body but in my soul. For the first time, I wasn't making decisions based on what my family would think. I wasn't trying to earn love or approval that was never mine to begin with. I was choosing myself. My future. My peace. And it felt so good. It had been almost 4 years since I last heard their voices. 4 years of rebuilding my life, one boundary at a time. I had finished my residency, joined a private clinic, and even bought my own apartment. My days were long but fulfilling. I saw patients who trusted me, respected me. My world had finally become quiet, stable, and mine. Then one evening as I was wrapping up a shift, a message came through. It wasn't from them directly. It was from my cousin Lisa, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. She wrote, "Hey, I know things are complicated but Sophia's really sick. It's serious. Your parents asked if you could talk to the hospital or recommend someone. They don't know what to do." I stared at my phone for a long time. Not because I didn't understand the message, but because I knew exactly what it meant. They needed me. Not as a daughter, not as a sister, not even as a person. They needed me as a doctor. The same degree they once mocked, the same path they dismissed, the same accomplishment they ignored. They were now depending on it to save someone they actually cared about. I didn't reply. A few hours later, another message came. This time from my uncle. Then another from my aunt. One by one, they started reaching out, all with the same tone. They're desperate. She's not responding to treatment. They don't know where else to go. You're her only hope. Funny how I was never their first choice when it mattered, but always their last option when they were out of choices. I sat in my living room that night, the lights off, just listening to the ticking of the clock. I thought about all the nights I spent alone while they traveled the world with Sophia. I thought about my graduation day, the way I had stood there in my gown searching for their faces in the crowd, only to find them smiling on a beach in Greece. I thought about the cruel message they sent, the years of silence that followed, and the peace I had carved out for myself with both hands. And then I turned off my phone. No drama. No anger. Just silence. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. This wasn't about proving anything. It was about protecting the life I had fought so hard to build. The little girl who cried herself to sleep after being told she wasn't enough didn't need to answer this call. She had grown up. She had become a doctor. And she had finally learned to say no. Not just to people but to pain. I went to bed that night and slept like I hadn't in years. It had been years. 4 years to be exact. 4 years since I'd decided to let go, 4 years since I'd stopped trying to please my family, and 4 years since I had made the hardest decision of my life, cutting off the toxic people who had never once seen me for who I was. They had never valued me, never recognized my worth, and most painfully, never celebrated my achievements. And during those 4 years, my life had been quiet, fulfilling, and free. I had finished my medical residency, become a licensed doctor, and had found my place in a private clinic where I was respected by my colleagues and patients alike. My career was on track, my personal life was growing, and for the first time I felt at peace with myself. But that peace was about to be shattered. It started one night when I received an unexpected message from my cousin Lisa. She and I hadn't spoken much in the past few years, but she was the kind of relative who would always try to bridge the gap between me and my family, even when they had completely shut me out. The message she sent was brief, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. Sophia's really sick. She needs urgent care. Your parents are reaching out to you through the family. Please, they're desperate. They don't know where else to go. I stared at the message for a long time, my finger hovering over the screen. I felt the anger, the hurt, the confusion all rise up in me at once. The sister who had once been my closest confidant, the one who had stolen my place at the table, the one who had always been the golden child, was now in trouble. And it wasn't just a minor illness. It was serious. Desperate. I thought back to all those years when they had chosen her over me, always praising her, always putting her needs before mine. I had worked tirelessly, sacrificing my own happiness and dreams to become the person they could finally be proud of. But they never saw it. It was always her. Always Sophia. Always the perfect daughter. The one who could do no wrong. And now they were asking me for help. They were asking the person they had abandoned, the person they had belittled, the person they had ignored, to come and save the day. I didn't respond immediately. But as the night wore on, more messages came through. First from Lisa again, and then from my aunt, my uncle, and even some distant cousins. The same request, worded slightly differently each time. They're begging for your help. They've tried everything else, but nothing is working. You're their last hope. The messages kept coming, but each one stung more than the last. It wasn't just that they needed me, it was the realization that they hadn't needed me in years. They hadn't even cared when I was working tirelessly to make a name for myself. They had chosen to ignore me when I needed them most. And now they were reaching out because they had nowhere else to turn. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my mom this time. The words were simple but cutting. Please, we don't have anyone else. We need you. The irony hit me like a slap across the face. All those years of me desperately trying to make them proud, to make them see me, and now here I was, their last resort. It wasn't out of love nor out of care. It was because they had nowhere else to go. They had nothing left to lose. I set my phone down, closed my eyes, and let out a long breath. My heart raced, my emotions a tangled mess of anger, hurt, and confusion. I wasn't sure what to do. But one thing was clear. I was no longer that girl. I wasn't the one they could call on whenever it was convenient for them. I wasn't a tool they could use and discard. Thought about my life. My hard-earned success. My career that had taken years of grueling work. The sacrifices I had made. All of that felt like it was in jeopardy if I let myself fall into the role of their emergency savior once again. I had spent so much time trying to fill their empty spaces, trying to fix things that weren't mine to fix. But not anymore. I made a choice. A quiet choice. I chose silence. I didn't pick up the phone. I didn't answer the messages. I didn't even try to reach out to see how serious it was. I knew what that call would mean. A chance for them to use me once again, to expect me to drop everything for them because they couldn't take responsibility for their own actions. I wasn't a safety net anymore. I chose silence over guilt. I chose peace over obligation. And for the first time I wasn't just okay with it, I was proud of it. I let the phone buzz. And I let it go to voicemail. They had made their choices. Now I was making mine.